Hey, Stacy, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you, Dom?
I'm very good. I am great, actually. It's nice to have you back here on the show.
Thank you. I very much appreciate the invite.
Yeah, well, you come here to talk to us about some serious stuff that we all need to hear about, but we might not be going to look for this info. So it's nice to have you come and join us and remind us about it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So for people who don't know, Stacy has been on the show before. I like to do mental health segments around holiday time, which is always tucked up here, November, December. And
Mhm.
true to form, Stacy is here with us doing that interview now. We're going to talk about anxiety and depression and things like that, things that might affect us as business owners that we don't normally get to talk about or think about because we're just working.
I'm sure.
Yeah. Hey, Stacy, before we get into it, though, you know that this is an audience of construction business owners all around the world,
Right.
but they don't know who the heck you are. Can you tell us who you are?
Absolutely. Thank you. My name is Stacey Henson. I am a licensed clinical social worker by training and have been in behavioral health for almost 25 years. Next summer will be 25 years, so I'm really close.
Yeah.
And I've worked in almost any arena you can think of, from maximum security prison to university settings to community mental health. And about 2 years ago, I made a leap to working in outreach. And
Mm.
so now I am the community outreach director for the Recovery Village in Umatilla, Florida, which is a small little town that I didn't even know existed prior to 2 years ago. And I work for Advanced Recovery Systems, who is a family system of treatment centers throughout the country. So throughout the United States, we have 10 treatment centers
Yeah.
that focus on a treatment for adults with primary substance use. And we do all levels of care. So we do detox, residential, outpatient. And my job all day, every day is that I get to talk about mental health, which is
Mm.
obviously a passion of mine for half my life,
Yeah.
and helped it, connect patients and families with treatment options and resources that maybe they weren't aware of in the past. And
Yeah.
then I get to do cool things like this.
Talk
So
on the podcast. Yeah.
absolutely.
And help people.
Yes,
Uh,
always.
and for people who maybe didn't hear Stacy's podcast with us before, it was because I had that client who had one
Mhm.
of his lead technicians who got addicted to meth after a divorce. And this gentleman was middle aged and not one that he had expected or anybody expected would go down the spiral so
Right.
quickly and so badly. So, Stacy, thanks for coming back today. We're going to talk about this big one here, which is I'll start with one of my own admissions. I remember when I was a house painter, I was so incredibly stressed out that I remember going through an intersection hoping I'd get hit by a car running a red.
Wow.
Yeah, crazy.
Yeah.
I was a kid, right? So I didn't know how to deal with stress.
Right.
Thankfully, I wasn't doing, like I wasn't drinking to get over it or anything like that. But like that was pretty, those are pretty dark days when that happens. And I wonder how many of our listeners are just under so much stress that it's just their normal. They don't even know anything but stress.
Right.
How do you start that conversation? How do you recognize it? What do we do to start this?
Well, I think, and I said this to you last time. I think just having these types of talks and putting this information out there is the way you start it, because I
Mm.
think the more we have these conversations, the more, I guess, the broader the audience, the more acceptable it becomes, the less stigmatized it becomes. But as far as it goes, I think you start a conversation, and often it's with someone we know well, where they
Mm.
might just be acting a little off, and you just ask, say, are you doing okay? Right? It can just be that simple. It can
Yeah.
be providing the feedback of, man, you look a little rough today, or did you have a long weekend, or
Yeah.
you've missed a couple of days of work. Is there something I can do to support you? Right?
Yeah.
So those, they just need to be more common conversations, I think. And the more we
Yeah.
talk about it, the more people will understand it and understand it within themselves or within the world around them. And then the more people will get support and help.
Yeah. It is a circle. You help somebody and you end up helping yourself as well. And
Yeah.
what if I'm the one who's feeling that stress and I don't know who to talk to? What's some ways that I can take care of myself, or maybe different ways of thinking, or different
Mhm.
ways of picking apart a situation in my mind? Our mind is such a
Right.
powerful tool.
Without a doubt. So there's a ton of ways. I could do a whole
well,
podcast just on this.
why don't
So
we
let
do
me
that?
think
Let's do a whole podcast just on.
yeah. So really what you're talking about is just having good self-care.
Okay.
So starting to recognize when things feel off for you, and that can be, you're not sleeping as well, or you're sleeping too much, or maybe you feel just frazzled or fried at the end of the day. Maybe you're more irritable or you're more tearful, right? Anytime we notice change that just feels off, it doesn't feel like us, right? We don't feel like ourselves, then it's important to just take a moment and go, okay, what's going on with me? Is it up here in my head? Am I feeling physically off?
Right.
What kind of things are there? And I am a huge proponent for journaling or taking notes. You can just do notes at the end of the day, like bullet points of what's been going on to try to track and see how things look.
So I was wondering if you've ever met a contractor who's grumpy and irritable.
Oh, never.
I know that almost everybody listening now is laughing, but journaling is interesting. So journaling is just writing in your book. And I'm a huge fan of handwriting my goals. And, people who were born many years after me laugh. They're like, well, can't I just use notes in my phone or something like that? Have you looked at, or could you explain to us the difference between typing your notes on a computer or on your phone versus handwriting on a piece of paper in a book? Because I believe there's a massive difference. I just can't explain it very well.
I believe there's a massive difference as well. Not sure I could give you the true intellectual piece of that, but what I could tell anybody who's listening is if you're, upset about something, start writing. And by the end of the time you're writing, your handwriting will look completely different.
Oh my gosh.
If you've really processed through it, you're going to notice, the first little bit's going to be chicken scratchy. It's because you're mad and you want to get it all out and you're writing it as fast as you can. And then as you kind of get through it, it's going to change. And so to me, writing it down is just a way of processing.
Right.
That's similar to talking, right? Because you have to find the words to put it in, to paint the picture, if you will. So I think, yes, if you had to type it, okay, you could type it because you might type really fast and really loud and clank, 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 and then it gets softer as you go along.
It's just not the same.
I believe that. I'm 100% on your side on that one, Dom.
Yeah. There's some sort of electrical connection between writing something by hand and how that travels up my arm and into my brain. And the best example I can give isn't even relevant anymore. And it's writing post-dated checks. When you write the first post-dated check and you do your signature, you're like, oh, okay, well, this is, I'm going to be renting this place or this piece of equipment. You're all happy, you're signing it. By the time you get to the 10th one, you're like, I'm renting this big piece of equipment. And this leasing company is going to take $2,700 a month. And you're like, oh my gosh, and you start to recognize the importance of every single zero on that page.
Sure.
And that's maybe an example for people that's different than just hitting PayPal, yes, approved, this many dollars for this many months. There is a connection for that. And so when we talk about self-care, you're saying taking a minute to write in your book is a thing.
Yes.
How often should I do that? Sorry.
No, go ahead.
How often should I do that? Is it just a once a year thing? Is it
I think daily is perfect. I think as in doing it anytime that you feel the need is also good enough, right? I think people have to start patterns of behavior with something. And so if you just say, okay, every time I feel upset, I'm going to sit down and write and try to process through it, whatever upset means to you, right? I mean, it could be angry, it could be sad, it could be anxious, whatever it is. I think the other place I feel that it can be helpful and it can be less, processing or less frou-frou for some people who are like, I'm not going to write my feelings down. That's totally not me.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, you can also look at it if you lay down in bed and you have that, dog chasing its tail in your head with the list of things you have to do tomorrow, right? Oh, crud, I forgot to take care of this and I've got to do that first thing. Again, old school, have a notepad by the bed with a pen,
Right.
roll over, write it down. You don't have to turn the light on. I don't care what it looks like. But the act of writing it
Yeah.
down, it's going to get it out of your head. So you're not focused on that anymore. And then you're going to be able to go back to sleep or get to sleep.
And you don't worry about forgetting it.
Exactly. Because it's there. I mean, and mine could be as inept as, oh, shoot, I got to go buy milk tomorrow. Right. Or whatever. Don't forget to take the dog out. I don't know, whatever it is.
It's not actually about the list. It's who I become by being a person who writes lists or who writes things down.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not about what I write today. It's the fact that I do write things down. And I've been at this a very long time. So I live in a weird world where I think about personal improvement and self-improvement. And I get it. I come from I had to get myself into this background, but now I'm in it. But I write my affirmations. I want to say daily, but I think we both know that would be lying. I write them almost every business day.
Okay.
And I start the day by writing them. I know that it takes me about 3.5 minutes to write 7 different affirmations down. But then when I write my affirmation, I don't just write them all in a row. I write them and then I think at the bottom of my page, okay, I got to do this. Like you said, got to buy milk, got to email that guy, got to get back to Stacy, book the appointment for the pot, all of those things. Right. And then I go to point 2 on my affirmations. Well, I'm going to do this. And I'm like, oh, I got to check this bank account and I've got to update this post. And that's how I get things done. That's how I create my list.
Well, and that's actually a great self-care way to manage stress is to be a list maker. Right. I mean, it helps us stay organized. It helps us stay focused. It helps us feel accomplished. Right. I am a huge proponent for if you have a list and you did something that wasn't on the list, write it down and mark it up.
Write it down and scratch it off. Yeah. There's nothing like striking something.
Yep.
So when we talk about self-care and writing in lists, something other people hear me talk about in the show a lot is leave the office with a notebook. For those of you who can't see this on the podcast, we're recording this as a video as well. So I've got my notebook here, and I believe in going to a coffee shop, getting a coffee, turning off my phone, facing the wall, so that, because I know so many people, as soon as I go to a coffee shop, it becomes Visit City, right? But face the wall, and I've got work to do, important work for my business, for my family's legacy, for the things I'm trying to accomplish, and then do my writing. But it's in a different place. It's not in the shop that smells of paint and thinners, the shop that sounds like, the bandsaw is going out back and the truck is backing up. I want to move myself into a different environment. Right. What other self-care? I mean, this is what you're calling it, self-care. If I'm stressed as a business owner, what other things can I do for myself to get on the healthy side of that?
Well, I think some basic things are having good structure in your day. If that's something that isn't, and I know, sometimes other things drive our day instead of we driving our days. Finding time to detach, like you said, go to a coffee shop, maybe go sit in your car, to turn on some music that you like. And my recommendation would be something that's relaxing. I used to work with a guy with anger management issues. He was actually in construction, and he would play like heavy metal when he was driving. And we talked about that really probably isn't your best choice. Not that he's going to pop on Frank Sinatra, because that's not his thing either. Right. But finding something that can be more relaxing. As much as I am old school and I like people to write and do those kind of things, there are some really great apps available that are free. And because I'm cheap, I do not have a single app that I've paid for on my phone, but there are so many out there that provide different prompts and different relaxation or music or self-care ideas. And that's a personal choice, right? I mean, some people aren't going to get into yoga. Some people aren't going to get into meditation. But you can find maybe something in the middle of that, maybe going for a walk, or if you have a pet, animals are fantastic for self-care because they need us to help them. Right. But what we get back from them is so amazing. So I think that those kind of things, making sure, again, as a business owner, you don't really get to detach from work.
No.
But there are a way that you can shut your mind down a little bit. Whether that is, again, exercise is a wonderful way to do that.
But we're talking about healthy ways to shut your mind down a little bit, because there unhealthy ways. And then you're in front of Stacy sitting on a couch talking about your feelings.
Right.
Yeah. We want the healthy ways.
Yeah. Well, going to a therapist in theory is a healthy way.
I get it is actually it's a professional who can listen to your
Yep.
current situation and talk about what you need to do about it. So that's always something that you can do and take advantage of that.
Yeah. But I think it's, having supports in your life, friends and family that you can talk to. There are unhealthy ones, right? And the classic ones are substances, food, and we can throw screens in there now, right? Or we can, put gambling in there or shopping. But screen time is a huge one, especially with the generations that are coming up, that people overindulge in things that are easily distracting, right? All of those things, eating, alcohol, substances, screens, they take our minds, they get us out of our heads, I guess is a better way to say that. So it's helpful-ish, right? But the reality is everything that was there prior to that activity is going to be there on the other side and maybe even more intensified.
Yeah. I say to my kids now that, because if we're going somewhere, they reach for their phone right away to get on their phone. And if we're just driving to practice,
right?
Like, you don't need to have your phone on, but I'm bored. I'm like, be bored.
Yes.
Boredom is where creativity comes from.
Yeah.
Right. It's okay to be bored for a few minutes.
Absolutely. It's
don't be
okay
afraid
to be
of
bored
that.
for a few hours.
Yeah, exactly. That's why you go walk your dog, talk to your dog. And, if you walk your cat, I think that looks kind of funny, but you walk your dog.
We had somebody walking their cat the other day in our neighborhood. My dog freaked out.
Were they using one of those cool backpacks with the little globe on the back?
No, I haven't
Have you seen
that.
those? Yeah, that just gives me hours of self-written stand-up comedy routines when I see that.
I'm sure.
Oh yeah, just nothing but fun. But we got these business owners who are working so hard and so consumed with what they're doing, very driven. Typically, the people that I talk to that listen to the show, when they give their word, they mean it. Like if they say, I'll finish that job, they'll finish that job, even if it costs them their own money to do it. And so these are people with a very high level of personal ethics and commitment to getting it done. And that can be very heavy as well.
For sure.
Really heavy. So I just wonder how we can reach out and say, hey, listen, it's okay to take a break. It's okay to write some stuff down. You don't have to work every minute,
right?
But still be productive.
So two things came to my mind when you were saying that. One of those is the self-care of being able to set limits. You're like, what is that?
So what do you mean? What is this setting limits you talk about? Those words go together in a sentence.
I mean, we think about it in often people overcommit in the holidays. We'll talk about the holidays specifically, right?
Sure.
Just, oh, well, I'll take care of the family shopping, or let's have 50 people over for the holidays for an open house, or those kind of things. We overcommit. We can do that at work.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what? John doesn't do a good job at that, so I'm just going to pick that up. And so we do too much of that. And then the amount of stress that comes with that, because, we are self-driven and we want to do a good job. And that's how we've been successful, right? All of those pieces are great qualities. But if we do too much or put too much on ourselves, no one person can continue under that amount of pressure forever. No. At some point, something's got to give.
Yeah, it's funny that you're talking about this from a social and a self-care perspective. And in my mind, all the business tools pop up. Understanding my revenue responsibility per hour. It's not to dig the hole. It's not to be the one stripping the wires. It's the one who's getting more business for everybody so that everybody else has more work. And the least valuable thing I can do is be the person stripping wires or swinging the hammer. I have to be doing something else as the owner because my job has changed. Once I become the owner of a company and I'm running a team, I'm now a team leader and I have that job description. So delegating is a really important part of that. And understanding that, and maybe you can help me say this in a nicer way, that because I worry about how this is going to come across, but I'm not like everybody else on my crew anymore. And I don't mean that I'm better than them. I just mean I have a different job. If our job is to dig post holes for fences, it's not that I can't do it. And it's not that it's beneath me to dig those fence holes. I have to do it. I have to go find us more gigs to dig more festivals so everybody else can do their job. I just have a different job now. And it's hard, I think, for people to understand that there's a difference when you're the owner versus somebody working in the company. It's just a different thing.
Sure. Well, you're filling the funnel, right? I mean, we're talking about sales. You're talking about lead generation. You're talking about all of those components. And that's what I do too, right? I'm talking to community partners. I'm talking to treatment centers, letting them know what resources are out there, because
Yeah.
if people aren't aware of what we do as a treatment program, then they're going to stop calling us. So if I decided just to, sit at home and play tic-tac-toe on my computer all day,
Yeah.
I'm not helping, and I'm a team leader now. So I have a staff of four people below me. And part of my job is helping coach them to get to where they can be successful on their own.
Right.
Right. Because when I'm working with them, as important as that is, me continuing to bring in the lead generation and do presentations like this in the community, getting our name out there, those kind of things. It's a different skill set, but it fills the funnel.
Have you ever had a discussion with a client, a patient? Do you call them clients or patients?
Both.
Okay,
Depends.
clients who's like, I'm a bit lonely now because I used to be one of the guys, and now I'm a manager or a leader or the owner, and I'm not one of the guys anymore. Yeah. And I've had this conversation with people on my team, and I remember this happened to me years and years ago when I was a kid too. Is that there is? Here's a specific example. I was running the painting company. And on Monday morning, I showed up with the crew to start them off on the job, and they're all talking. And I realized they'd had a party and didn't invite me. But why would they? I'm the boss. I'm supposed to be the guy they hate. Okay, let's get that. But I remember leaving and I was kind of hurt. I was like, oh.
And I think it's even harder, when you do it within the same group of people. Right? If you change companies, it's not as hard because you've never really been a part of that group. So if you get promoted from within.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Definitely a different challenge. But so I think that is definitely a place where business owners, finding again, sometimes it's about the time, Dom, but finding other ways to meet other business owners. I know there's a ton of community organizations that are set aside specifically for business owners in the Tampa area.
Right.
So looking for connections that way, or other people that are business owners in the same area that you do different jobs with, and they're your partner in this particular arena.
There's associations, just things like, or the BNI. Are you familiar with BNI?
No. So
BNI is a national organization. It goes by BNI, but is Business Networking International. But there's chapters in if you're in any size city, if you're in a medium-sized city, there's a BNI meeting at morning, for breakfast, lunch, and then after work. So that there's no shortage of BNIs to find. But that's a good place, I guess, to go hang out with people who are more aligned to the way you do your work, and not as much. And again, I'm not taking away from swinging the hammer. That's where we all started, putting up fascia board and running siding. That's a thing, right? Placing concrete. That's what we did. But now I'm running a company that places concrete. And so I need to be around other people that are in that, that are also running businesses, because we have different concerns and we talk about different things. I suppose listening to my podcast is one of them, because you're going to be around people here who are talking about the business of business.
For sure. And I think that there's different ways of looking at it. So there's the social component that comes with work, right? Which is what we're talking about. But there's also just having a social capacity outside of work. So whether that's family or a friend group that aren't connected with work. And I don't mean 100% disconnected from work, because obviously we make friends that way, but there's a need for that support in and out of work. So again, that's going to be, and when I say self-care, I mean, that can be self-care at work. I mean, you need to have your supports in place, whether that's your go-to person that is always going to follow up on things that you ask them to follow up on. And that may be the next business owner, right? Like the next person who's going to launch and do that on their own because they've been so successful. So it's so important. But it that camaraderie can be there to some degree, but there's always the differentiation amongst leadership positions.
Levels. Yeah, levels. Because we can also get into, and this would be harmful to the business if we still want to hang out with the crew and we're with the crew the whole time. That lends itself to then people think they can take advantage. And, it's something that I learned in corporate is that if you're the manager and you're at a function, a party with the rest of the team, you have to leave early.
Yeah.
You just pull a Houdini and you just walk out while everybody else is still having their fun and talking about the golf round or whatever it was. Just leave.
Right.
You're the manager. You're supposed to create a little bit of professional distance.
Yeah. And I get it. I mean, I've been in positions where I've been the only manager at a certain level, and it is very lonely, and so I know that I don't want to work in a company where I don't have a group of peers, because that's something that I really cherish.
We're too social. We like having people around.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But if that's the case, and it is the case for many of us, then we need to find a different group of people to be around. And all this comes back to, if you find yourself getting, how we started, this is about anxiety and depression in business owners. And this is what I have from you so far, Stacey. Tell me if I've missed any. How to deal with self-care. I think that was the phrase, self-care. So we can write in our journal so that we get control over our day and understand what we're doing. Yeah. We need good structure, which I call time management. I think that we, having good structure, time to detach. So time to do other things, walk the dog, pet the cat, walk the cat and get laughed at. And then I wrote down networking, professional networking, I guess. I don't know that falls under a self-care, but
I think it can, because it's that social component that a lot of people need, but it also kind of kills two birds with one stone, right? Because it's social, but it also helps you build your brand.
Yeah, that's right. Oh, you're building 3 houses? It just so happens that I put siding on houses.
Yeah, exactly.
Here we are talking about it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Stacey, this has been great. And it's a start to the conversation. Hopefully somebody hearing this has said, I didn't want to tell anybody, but I do have anxiety and depression. I don't know how to deal with it. And so thank God Stacey was on to give me a pointer. And you and I probably won't ever know what the most impactful thing we said was, but I hope somebody out there grabs what they need and runs with it.
Well, and I think it is, I think everybody, and this is my personal opinion, but clinically, if you look at it, I don't think that there's a person that goes through life that doesn't struggle with anxiety or depression at some point in their life. You were talking about as a kid, right? There's all of these things because life is stressful. COVID aside, that's been a whole thing, but, statistically we've looked at, midsummer, we did some research and we're looking like at 10% increase just in the first 6 months of the year of reporting symptoms.
Oh,
whatever those mental health symptoms are. Sometimes most of it was anxiety,
sure.
But then the next one tapped was stress, and then looking at depression and loneliness. So we do see these things in broad swatches of populations. So, and then you throw the holidays in and we get other statistics where people who've had some struggles with mental illness, it almost always increases during the holidays. So there's just so much that circles around just mental, like depression and anxiety by itself.
Right. Yeah. I think recognizing it, just being open that, hey, listen, I'm not having my greatest day. What can I do to get out of it? Because we all, like you said, we all have bad days, yes. So in construction, there's something called a punch list or deficiencies. Mm-hmm. And so that's where your client gets to judge your work and hand you a piece of paper and tell you you're not good enough. You didn't do a good enough job. I'm making a joke out of it. Yeah. And that can be stressful because you think you're done on that job. You're already maxed out. You're probably looking at it saying, I don't think we made enough money. Now I've got to go back. Well, putting one person in one van for 1 hour is about $600. And that's a very rough number for all trades, but it costs more money. And so the stress goes up again and again in every phone call. And
right.
It's anybody listening, start by writing lists. Do what Stacey's saying here. Take care of yourself because you're the machine that drives this business. You're the engine that drives all of the systems, all of the change, and all the potential this company has.
Well, and just to throw this out there, we just launched an app over the summer, and it's free because I'm like,
because you like free apps.
Yeah. It's called Nobu, Nobu.
Uh-huh.
And it's on the iPhones, the App Store and Google Play.
Yeah.
But it is doing what it has some different inventories, if you will, on there. So if you're really concerned,
Mm.
I'm really feeling down, there's what's called the PHQ-9, which is a depression screening. There's one for anxiety on there, and it has journaling exercises. It does have yoga and meditation. It has all of the stuff on there for free, but it allows you to kind of do those inventories and check in with yourself
Mm.
and kind of show you how that's looked, or are things getting better? And it gives you ideas of different things you can try. So it's a little bit more therapy driven than some other apps are.
Sure.
I mean, it's a pretty cool one, and I've downloaded, I'm still just playing with it because it's got so much stuff on it. But again, it's something, one of the good things that's come from COVID is we decided to launch an app. So, but I mean, there's a ton of apps out there. Ours is by far not the only one, but definitely worth looking at.
This one's called Nobu, Nobu.
Nobu, correct. I'll send you the link and you can check it out.
There's an awesome restaurant in Vegas called Nobu.
Really? I've never been to Vegas.
Yeah, well, it's okay. I'm done with Vegas.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that, by the way, that would fall under the category of bad self-help. Bad self. I don't know.
It could. It absolutely could.
Just, and anybody here who's from Las Vegas knows that the Strip is just like Disneyland to people who live there. There's an entire world off the Strip that's just normal people leading normal lives, but Vegas itself is just a crazy place.
Got it.
Yeah. Stacy, thanks for being on here. If somebody wants to find you or ask you more questions or find out more about what you do, how do we find you in this big wide world?
Well, we have, I mean, the easiest way is to call me at 407-821-2008. My email address is ridiculously long, but the company is Advanced Recovery Systems, and they do have a link to all of the business development team, and I'm on that page as well.
Okay. Yeah. Well, and people can see, we'll have you here on the show notes.
Okay.
And you've been on the show before, that that one that you and I did about meth and helping people through that addiction and recognizing this. I got a lot of side conversation about that. So thank you.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, and there's, one of the things I'll make sure you have too is if people are just curious and just want to do their own information gathering, I mean, obviously Google away, but the Recovery Village has a lot of data, and like some of the statistics I brought up today, we do research consistently. So there's a lot of articles that are written throughout the time. Okay. There's old presentations that people have done throughout the years that are on our website. It's therecoveryvillage.com, and just a ridiculous amount of information if you have curious questions about anything.
So I think the point I'm getting here is take the first step. There's lots of info. You guys have great info. You're open that there's lots of other info out there, but do the healthy things in this world to take care of yourself. Journaling, having good time structure, time to detach, getting out there and networking with others who are more like you in your role. So your role now as a business owner is as a business owner. And so network with other people like that and use that as a social outlet instead of maybe hanging with the team and just hearing them, with their constant feedback that you might find negative. Go find some other people to hang with. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Stacy. It's been great having you here. As we record, it's kind of that weird Christmas/New Year's season. Yes. So I think you'll probably go live in January, this episode, but I'm going to wish you guys, your family, the best holidays, Christmas and New Year's. And
thank you. You as well.
Thank you. Thanks for being on the show.
Absolutely.
Okay. Thanks, Stacy. Bye-bye.